Good morning. Thank you all for being there in the morning session. I think that was a very insightful session with Pagita, Ibu Shinta, as well as Pa Sandiaga Uno. The purpose of actually the morning speakers is to give us a framework for our discussions as we go ahead. But it's not to just talk about what they said, but it's more about talking about what you want to say. Our biggest challenge that we have faced over the years working in Indonesia has been putting words to action. And they have been challenges for various kinds of reasons. So Indonesia Economic Forum intends to be an actionable platform so that the things that you want to discuss, the things that you want to say can be amplified, not only in terms of a report that's prepared and then submitted to the government, to the cabinet, but also in terms of how we can amplify the message using our social media and our digital channels. As you do know, we go to more than 10,000 people across the region in 49 countries. A lot of the messaging is also within Indonesia, and most of our content on our YouTube channels and social media channels is watched and viewed. This year we are going into TikTok, and our team is preparing short clips which can be amplified. Depending on the message and who the audience is, we decide what content goes onto which platform. So this session now is basically more of an actionable session. We have time till about 12:15. 12 to 12:15. We would like to encourage all of you to participate in the conversation. I'm going to go around the room, not necessarily in an order, but in terms of as we go through the various topics, I'm going to invite each one of you to say a few words. If there is something that you'd like to say in between, kindly raise your hand so that I can change that sequence to come to you. We have a very wide mix of people in the room. I'm going to get started with Pa Umar Hadi, who is here with me. Pa Umar is from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but that's not the hat that he's wearing when he's here today. He is also one of the strongest, I would say, proponents or I would say champions of performing arts, creative economy, and various aspects related to this in his various roles that he has played in the past. Some of you who have been here on Jazz at the Library know that for much, that Pa Umar and with Ilham have put together a show that is really aimed at the diplomatic community and the people who take decisions in supporting the creative economy and the creative arts. So Pa Umar, maybe I'll start with you. Some thoughts and ideas on what you feel was discussed this morning, as well as how you feel that Indonesia can collaborate with other nations. Diplomatic, bilateral relationships that Indonesia has can be put to much better use if we find a way to connect with them and engage with these countries on an ongoing basis and not just one-off projects. So any views on that, Pa Umar?
Well, thank you very much, Pa Sachin. Good morning to everybody. As a trained diplomat, I'm not used to an impromptu question because we have to do our research first. But as a trained artist, I can always wing it and improvise. I think before we go into collaborations with other countries, there are three main challenges, I think, that we need to discuss when it comes to promoting creative economy, including in the digital space, right? Number one is the discussion around freedom of expression. This is something that I believe in Indonesia and in many other countries, as community, we really need to come to terms with how far, how little freedom of expressions protected by the Constitution and the application of it. And that includes law enforcement and so on and so forth. I learned when I was in South Korea that actually when they had their political reform back in the late 80s, one of the first things they did in the early 90s was to really provide almost total freedom of expression to their people. For example, in 1992, they do away with the censorship regulation. And that provided a kind of launch pad for the artists to really, so that's why you can see the explosion of artistic expressions in South Korea since the early 90s. Hence we have now, there was a very fun example in the South Korean films before the 90s, when they include in the story about North Korea, it was always, they always pictured North Koreans as this, heinous, bad, cruel, but because the censorship from the government was very strong, and even a filmmaker had to submit the story first before get the permission to produce the film. But after 92, suddenly North Koreans become very nice, normal people. And I think in one of the most popular TV series they made recently called Crash Landing or something like that. Huh? You know that? So the good guy was the North Korean soldier. So that's just how freedom of expression can really influence creativity of the talents. Now I know in Indonesia, and I want to hear and listen the experience in India. The debate on censorship is still alive. I was a member of a film censor body back in the 90s, and I know how it worked, and I think it doesn't change that much until now. Even music or printed materials, so that's something we need to discuss and come to terms with, or maybe create some kind of a better system, for example, rather than censorship. In South Korea, there is now a kind of a rating system, but it is done by the industry, not by the government. That's one. The second issues of discussion, I think, is on talents development or human capital, especially when it comes to education. Most of the times, at least in Indonesia, when we talk about education for creative economy, creative industry, is more about the main actors. In the art schools, you train the performers. In the fashion industry, you train the designer. But we often forget to train the how do you say it? The support system. In the film business, for example, we forgot to train seriously the lighting engineers, the sound engineers. one of my hobbies is producing documentaries, and it's always very difficult to find a good videographer or post-production editing people. It's very difficult. So from time to time we have to rely on still hiring foreign experts if you want to have a better quality of the production. So this is, I think, one area also to work on, how to train and educate and provide the skill sets for this, the whole ecosystem of when you talk about production of in the creative economy. And not to mention also about the need to educate or train more management or managers and producers. I was also posted in Los Angeles for a few years, and I visited many of their art schools, the Cal Arts or the George Lucas Film School at the USC. And I learned that even in the curriculum for performers, the first semester is all about production, right? So before a film student learn how to make the movies, he or she should learn first about the overall landscape of film production. And this is, I think, what we need to inject in our education system. The third issue is about the market. The debate in Indonesia is about whether you want to protect the market to allow the locals to thrive, or to open it to have more competition. And this is not an easy debate. I know, I think whoever is in power will always face this kind of debate. In South Korea, when I learned about their creative industry, actually what happened was they really opened the market. You know this, and actually the government stay away from the market and let or allow private companies to do the job. And I think it was, again, in the early 1990s when the government decided to open up the market for, at the time, at first on media organizations, and then on film industry, and then music, and so on and so forth. I think the game changer was Samsung, when Samsung Group decided to spin off CJ Group. That's why we know now CJ Entertainment, CGV, and so on and so forth. And these companies remain to be the driving force of the creative economy in all sectors. You know, actually, for example, in the CJ Group, the biggest part of CJ Group is not the film or music, but it's the food. Yeah, it's a food industry. So, and they call it now lifestyle industry. And I think this is something that still needs to be promoted in Indonesia. So I think those are the three issues that I want to bring in this morning, Pak Sachin. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Umar. In fact, we have a good example of many of these topics represented in the speakers who are here today. We're going to go around the room and hear from them as well. Timothy, you had some stats and some data to share. Just a quick introduction, Populix and Dr. Timothy Astandu is the CEO. Could we have the Populix presentation on screen? Timothy here is partnering with Indonesia Economic Forum so that we can share some data and insights. Populix is a new company that is into data and insights. We felt that it would be a great way for us to get a hold on the numbers, and that would be another point to fuel the conversation for today. So we'll listen to a few people and then we'll get the discussion going. Over to you, Timothy. Yes.
Thank you so much, Pak Sachin. Thank you for the invitation. It is great to be here this morning to meet everyone, all the esteemed speakers, to Pak Umar and Pak Chandra juga. Good morning, and the rest of the audience. As Pak Sachin mentioned, my name is Timothy from Populix. These few slides, I have 3 slides here, were actually taken from a survey that we launched in December 2022 on tourism and people's year-end vacation plans. So as we emerged from the COVID pandemic, we wanted to see the rebound in tourism, and I will share some stats. And like you said, hopefully this will be some food for thought for the rest of us and a conversation starter as well. So yeah, this is just Populix. So what was interesting in this report, and I'm just summing up or taking a few bits and pieces that we found very, very interesting, was that even locally, and this is among young Indonesians, the demand for domestic travel was really, really strong. People actually want to travel domestically. So this morning we heard a lot about foreign tourism, but actually domestically we also have a very strong market. Interesting as well, Indonesia is an archipelago of 7 islands, but when they want to go, the same top he thought we thought was quite interesting. On Bali, maybe now beyond Labuan Bajo, how do we get people to explore other beautiful places like Toraja, like Sumatra, like Papua? These are very interesting places, and I've been to most of these places. If I may say, they're on par or even better than some of the more famous destinations in Indonesia. And I think what's interesting also, and I want to point this as the second topic, is that the way people now book their vacations have completely changed compared to, let's say, the previous decades, right? So young people nowadays, the length of time it takes them to book a trip is now getting shorter and shorter. So weekend getaways, city getaways, these are becoming spontaneous purchases. And so this is very interesting. Like most of the trips, almost all of the trips that they plan are under 6 months from the actual date of travel. And I think this makes us or triggers us to think, if we're in the tourism and creative economy sectors, how do we cater to this changing consumer behaviors? And I think in terms of transportation, accommodation, booking methods, etc., it's already quite obvious that you have to have a strong presence online. Gone are the days in Pulau Gadung or somewhere you buy it doesn't happen. It's a must for all players in the hotel industry, in the culinary industry. You have to have a presence online. Topic, which is we found many things, but two are strongly interlinked online. The way to know where to go online now. Like literally, based in Indonesia, first by hearing about the place from their friends or family. Then they would go to Instagram and they would look, oh, is this place beautiful or not? Is this worth the cost of going there? And finally, they would go to YouTube, find a YouTuber who's been there, and look at how they went there, booking flights, hotels, what are the destinations that they need to go. So I think that's the and hopefully it will be interesting discussion. Thank you so much, Pak.
So as you can see, we've got 3 topics from Pa Umar, which is freedom of expression. Number 2 is talent and stuff. And the 4th is insights. So Timothy has pointed out how Populix is in the business of creating insights. And a lot of times we take a lot of decisions in Indonesia based on feel, network, people we know. We don't really rely on insights. And I think we should as we go forward. So that's another topic of, as you present some of the other topics, do think about using insights. There is one sorry. So there is bring Chandra to talk about because Pa Chandra has been part of we tell us a little bit more about what they do, but his experience there has brought forward another important aspect that we should in this whole creative art economy industry. Over to you, Pa Chandra.
This. Okay, good morning, Pa Umar, for inviting me today. Ladies and gentlemen, I follow the two cases of Pak Gita dan Ibu Shinta. And I use the term inconvenient truth, a term coined by Al Gore, Vice President of the US. Before that, WIPO, let me give you a few words about WIPO, specialized agent UN family, United Nations family, specialized in the promoting the intellectual property. WIPO can assist developing countries in improving the system of intellectual property. So I had the opportunity to work for WIPO for 18 years. And during the 18 years, I must share with you, I have had the luxury in observing why nations climb the ladder with intellectual property. Obvious example was China and Vietnam. When I entered WIPO in low rank in patent grant and patents. One of 50 countries, the ranking. Now, China is the most patent application country in the world. Why did this happen? China was ready to boost their economy when they opened up the market economy, when they were ready with millions of engineers. They were ready. Now, compare it to Indonesia, where the most sought faculty in the university is social sciences, not STEM, not science, not mathematics. So that's why we have a lot of lawyers, politicians in Indonesia now. My point is that in WIPO, there's the term that we use is innovation and creativity. Innovations relates to technology. Creativity relates to arts and all the branches of arts. So the inconvenient truth is I wanted to share with you is that as we all know that the manufacturing sector in Indonesia is percentage going down. This is an illustration that the country is not yet ready to boost industrialization because Indonesia does not have the technology, enough technology. That's why the manufacturing sector, which is heavy on technology, is going down. That is an inconvenient truth. Now, if you notice the figures of Pak Sandi, that Indonesia has the value of in this creative industry third in the world, I think it's not rocket science to say that Indonesia has a better chance to boost its creative sector as compared to the technology sector. Indonesia is running out of time. And to catch high order. If you see the figures of in ASEAN, Indonesia allocates only 0.2% of GDP. Philippines, less than that. But Vietnam is twice in terms of percentage of GDP for research. Twice Vietnam. Malaysia is twice Thailand. And this is of GDP. Now, if you see from that small for technology to research, it's very low. How? It's like you have a race. I'm using bicycle, and Pa Omar is using a car, right? How better you? I will like mine. He will accelerate. Okay. Now, entering to the topic that today's, I think, main. Yes, digital economy can, but the digital economy does not work in a vacuum. It needs several pillars: legislation, administration, business model, awareness, and of course, enforcement. Now, let me say about just yesterday, with at the age limit of vice president. No. But I will try to convince the panel of judges, which was the whole team of the Institutional Court, to convince them that there's an article in the market like malls are obliged to eradicate tenants who sell. Convince the judges that Article 10 should be expanded, that marketplace is not confined to physical places, but also the digital space. Because if that word of marketplace is expanded, is stretched, also including the digital market, that will allow potentially 187 million US to be reaped. Just the notion of marketplace from not only physical malls, shops, but also to platforms like UGC and so forth. So what I'm illustrating is that yes, first, the inconvenient truth is that Indonesia has more chance in its creative sector as compared to the technology center innovation. And second, the digital economy does not work in a vacuum. It needs to boost several elements. One of them is the enforcement side, which I illustrated to you by trying to convince the judges that the marketplace includes platforms. Now, the last point I want to also to share with you is about the collaboration, and Pa Omar is, the champion of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in this regard. I'd like to give an idea that the network of sister cities could actually be ignited. I don't know whether you are familiar, or you've been to collaboration in the field of creative industry, in the field of music, which I'm very close to my heart, which can boost the creative sector and also help by the enabling by the digital economy. That's what I wanted to say, Sachin, to give food for thought. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pa Chandra. So you added a couple of things, not only IP, but also technology, collaboration. You addressed the market thing. So we have some interesting hooks to get onto. I'd like to ask Nalin to talk a little bit about talent, because talent is the second point that Pa Umar brought about. Orbit is also one of the organizations that's heavily involved in developing talent outside the normal academia approach, because academia focuses on 4-year degrees and postgraduate degrees, while as I think the need of the hour needs to be skilling that can be done within months and years, a year at the most. So Nalin, over to you.
Thanks, Sachin. Before I speak on that, I had a light-hearted insight based on the data you presented. Suggestion from partner to go on a trip, only 28%, partner or spouse. And taking partner and spouse for a vacation, only 8%. What's happening? You are a minority. Came with your wife. Excited I got from that, which was a little surprising. But yes, I had asked Pagita earlier that in Indonesia, you mentioned people taking social sciences. That's our experience too. I have visited 250 universities, and I'm surprised that there are classrooms full of people studying things like Russian literature. What kind of jobs will they get after that? Or something like that, equally abstract, which we don't find in other countries. See, the latest example of a country skilling up on the technology side is Vietnam, which come leaps and bounds in the last few decades. And before that, India. What happened in these two countries? Why did they succeed? It's interesting to see what happened in both these countries. India succeeded and Vietnam succeeded despite the government. That means the government did not interfere in technology skilling and skilling in general. They confined themselves to universities. They let private sector do all the skilling. They removed all the regulation, like you said about the censor board, which you yourself were a part of. I didn't know that. Maybe you should have removed it then. But in my experience of just these two countries, they let it go. What's the result? Today, India produces 1.5 million or higher engineers, 500,000 doctors. Everywhere you go, and it's an observation I made to Sachin when I came to Indonesia 6-7 years ago. When I drive through the Indonesian highways, I see one major difference between Vietnam, India, China, and Indonesia. In those countries, every city you pass through, the signboards and billboards are of education institutes, private education institutes. India has a dozen of them with more than $1 billion market cap each listed on the stock exchange. In Indonesia, the only billboards you see is cigarettes. Those are the only billboards you see. You don't see, even now you see some political ones, but you don't see business billboards. You only see cigarettes. You don't see education institutes billboards. My view is that they should deregulate. They should let people study what they want to study. Today, universities in Indonesia are teaching what they have lecturers for, not what students want. We did a survey across hundreds of universities across Indonesia and asked students what they want to study. AI, cloud, digital marketing, that's what students want. But they are studying what universities are offering. I think the answer is to deregulate. It's some oversight, maybe. That's my view.
It's a good point, actually, because, for some of the jobs that Sandy mentioned earlier, there are no courses. We don't have, many of the universities do not have courses for film management, for festival management, for courses. Courses like this are very in a handful of places only. So I think that is a food for thought that maybe we can work with Ministry of Tourism to find ways to get more of these short courses, collaborate with more international universities, etc. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to move on, actually. We have a few other examples here of projects which deal with these 7 different topics. I'll repeat the topics again. There is freedom of expression, the market by itself, insights, intellectual property, technology, and collaboration. So we'd like to hear a little bit from some of the projects that are in the room who are implementing a lot of interesting initiatives in 2024 and going forward, and try and put in context how they are addressing these various 7 different topics. So Cam, may I ask you, Cam, talk a little bit about the Bali app. So just to give an introduction, Megatix Indonesia is a company that's been set up to digitalize the sector by offering many solutions like ticketing, online ticketing, etc. But more than that, they have been seen as ecosystem builders. And Cam here, Cameron Frost, has been working very hard to set up an example of a Bali app. And since all of you have been on holiday to Bali, I'm sure you'll relate with it. It's to give us a case study. You know, the idea is to have a case study of how a digital technology platform is helping to connect the ecosystem. So over to you, Cam.
Yeah, thank you very much. We've had some great speakers today, but I'm going to be reading a little bit just to make sure I get it all right. So yeah, good morning, distinguished guests, fellow entrepreneurs and esteemed members of the Indonesian Economic Forum. I'm here to stand before you today as the CEO of Megatix Indonesia. We're a company that's trying to also not just revolutionize the ticketing industry, but has also embarked on a mission to enhance the cultural and experiential richness of Bali and beyond. So just a little bit about Megatix. So in 2019, we were introduced Megatix Indonesia, a ticketing platform designed by promoters for promoters. So we recognized the need for change in an industry where power was often taken away from the promoter and the creatives. So at the core of Megatix's mission is a fundamental belief in empowering event organizers and promoters in an industry where intermediaries often seize control. So Megatix stands as a revolutionary force, returning power to those who curate and bring events to life. Our platform is meticulously crafted to be a partner and not a hindrance. And unlike traditional ticketing companies that seek to dominate and control the entire process, Megatix champions the autonomy of promoters, ensuring they retain control over their events, their branding, their audience engagement, and their financial outcomes. So today I'm proud to share that Megatix handles almost about 80% of all the events in Bali now in just a few short years. Our focus this year and in the coming years is to extend our reach to the other regions of Indonesia, to which we've already had a lot of fantastic success. We've already supported many, many large-scale events around Java, Kalimantan, and Sulawesi, so we're looking to hopefully grow even further this year. These are just a few of the clients that we already work with, so you might recognize a few names up there like Atlas, Bali United, Bali Tourism Board. You know, basically if you've been anywhere in Bali, you've probably been to a few of these venues. So our journey with Megatix led us to a profound realization. While people were enjoying the events and tourism, they really struggled to connect spiritually and culturally with Bali and beyond its popular attractions. This insight gave birth to the Bali app, a digital platform designed to enrich the experience of visitors. So we've been working on this for quite a while behind the scenes, but we actually only just launched 4 weeks ago. The Bali app has already achieved around 30,000 downloads in its first month, and we're only just getting started. It even achieved, for a brief moment there, on the top 200 travel apps in the world. Where are we? And this is without using actually any marketing material at all. We haven't even started on our social media. We haven't started on offline advertising yet. This is purely just making the app an actual tool that you need to interact with when you come to Bali. So by positioning itself as a powerful tool for tourists to navigate cultural venues, connect with local drivers, tour guides, and to find events and activities, and to discover the true essence of Bali beyond the well-trodden paths. The Bali app is quickly becoming a must-have app on your phone while visiting the island. Oops, I haven't been pressing that button. So there's a good example of one of the features that we have is a transformative map feature. It's innovative use of interactive maps, enriching the experience of renowned locations such as Monkey Forest, for example. So when exploring Monkey Forest, our app provides users with a digital interactive map. I don't know if I can, yeah, as you can see there. So essentially, like, a lot of people would go to Monkey Forest and they would just walk through the venue as quickly as they could, snap a couple of selfies, and off they go. I don't know how many people here have been to Monkey Forest, but did you know there's actually 8 different monkey tribes inside of Monkey Forest? Most people don't. So this app we've actually worked with Monkey Forest and the village leaders to actually curate what they want people to know when they come into these venues. So be able to, when you get, now, next time you walk through Monkey Forest, you'll notice there's these 8 monkey statues holding up QR codes. So you can come and scan that QR code and it will tell you where you are and what you're looking at and what it actually means from the actual people who come from the Ubud village. So we have all these tools inside the app that actually allow you to connect more culturally and deeper at these venues. So a good example is, I don't know how many people have been to the UNESCO site at Jatilui. So it's great, right? It's absolutely incredible. It should be a must-go location to everyone in Bali. So we went up to Jatilui the other week. Actually, it's my first time. I've been living in Bali for quite a long time, and ashamedly, it was my first time. And we just went, wow, how is this not one of the biggest tourist destinations in Bali? So we actually sat down with the management, again, with the village, and we said, what's happening here? How can we actually help? You know, and we realized that they're really under-digitized. You know, there's actually very difficult to find out any information. It's very difficult to buy your ticket. It's very difficult to know what you can actually do in the region. So as a case study, we're now working to, they basically came to us and said, Cam, help us, do what you need. So now we're working on actually, again, mapping out the whole venue. What are the best trails to get through the rice fields? How do you actually rent a bike to go through these rice fields? So what we do is we go to each location and we ask them, how can we make your customers' experiences better at your venue? Or how can we help attract more people to these regions? So, you know, it's something that we're just experiencing with all the villages that we're speaking to. They're coming to us with open arms and going, yes, please help, we need this. So, you know, while popular travel sites are invaluable, we believe that actually people are yearning for a more deeper, more region-specific experience. So the Bali app is the answer to this. Supporting and understanding, you know, Bali on a level that transcends conventional tourism. Our goal is to expand that concept into other regions. So Bali is our first trial. We've already had interest from other areas and other countries that have seen this already and want to get involved. So as we launch the Bali app, we're convinced it'll redefine the way people travel on a more localized way. Although we're in the early stages, the overwhelming response in just a few weeks speaks volumes. The Bali app's more than a guide, it's a transformative tool, and we believe this app will fundamentally change how people engage with destinations. So, yeah. In conclusion, Megatix Indonesia and the Bali app are not just business ventures. You know, they're a testament to our commitment to empower, connect, and uplift. We honestly believe in the transformative power of experiences and the positive impact they can have on communities. So yeah, thank you for your time. If there's any questions, let me know.
That was outstanding. Thank you. So, you know, what I learned from working with Cam and when I first heard about the Bali app was, I was surprised at the way they looked at developing a technology. This is a true collaboration with the local people. You know, the words he said about, we wanted them to know what is it that they want people to know about their place. So the narrative is not driven by the technology company. It's driven by collaborating with the locals. And that's very important because then you bring the locals into the picture, right? They become stakeholders because they are telling their story of what they want outside people to know about them. The second thing is the unique application of technology is wonderful. I mean, you're trying to make a user experience, not just making an app. Because I know, you know, I think all of us have traveled to a lot of places in the last 3 years, and we've always opened some app or the other, right? There's Agoda, there is TripAdvisor, etc. But it's the same experience. So at some point of time, you have no preference because it's the same. I go Google also, I get the same information. It doesn't really matter. Booking.com gives you the same information. It doesn't really matter. But if a specialized app looks at an experience so that you are getting a better holiday or experience while you're in that place, I think that speaks volumes. So, you know, hats off to you at Megatix. The reason why I wanted Cam to present it is because I think this is a way forward. It's a disruptor to what's normally happening around us. This is not what you see on Traveloka or some of the other multi-billion-dollar technologies companies. but he's grown organically and he's working his way up in building a footprint across the country. And I think, something that you collaborate with Kaman Paragraph would be very good. I think Pasandi has asked that we will have a separate meeting to talk about the Bali app, etc. So I'm going to move on from Cam. If anybody has any questions to him, you can ask a quick question if you like. But I'm going to otherwise move on. I want to actually ask Gilang to talk a little bit about his project. Gilang is representing the Komodo project. The Komodo project is, I won't say it, I'm going to ask him to explain what it is. But I see that as a strong revival of a lot of forgotten things about the world of music and culture that we know about. And as we see ourselves modernizing, we see more influence of TikTok and YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. We tend to forget our roots, and we tend to forget a lot of value that is there in our cultural heritage. So in that sense, Gilang is working on a project which has already started, but in 2024 he's collaborating with many people in the room here. I think it's very important that we have a short introduction to what is the Komodo project and the things that Gilang wants to do. Over to you, Gilang.
Okay, thank you, Sachin. Omar, thank you, and then Chandra and Amin, because this 4% is really my back, like really to help to make it everything's happen. This 4% really. So what I do is concerning about most of the day is concerning about traditional music. Well, if you mention music, your imagination will be like jazz, rock, or those kind of like that. But if concerning about what I mean music, if it's mentioned Indonesian music, there's a lot of music going on in most all of region. So we were talking about, with Mr. Amin here and Chandra, there's a law. It's in number 5, and 2017 is about protection of a culture in Indonesia. So probably the traditional music is a part of, has to be protecting of it. But there's a lot of question about how are we going to protect. So, and then some musician, I know, most of it, but the business area, is there a market for traditional music? Might say probably, who listen to the music, traditional music? It's kind of sad a little bit, but there's a big giant opportunity on the business actually. We could mention on all over Indonesia, we might have like, I would say the number of musicians is probably like 30,000 musicians all over Indonesia. And there's a lot of thousand traditional instruments all over Indonesia. But it hasn't probably putting on the modern management. It hasn't been go to that direction for a while. So in the meantime now we are trying to make like the ecosystem and everything. And it's not like, we're gonna make like a martabak, the next day it's gonna happen. It's gonna be like really taking time of this thing. But considering about the digital now, it's very interesting. Concerning about music, I might ask you all, in this time, are we listening to music or we see music? The subject. Are we listening or we see? Now in this day, probably, I said, no, we're not listening, we see. Because of a handphone. It's just a bunch of kids probably, they want to see first, not listening. So that's a different area between my area during 1980, and then we listen. Now kids is more seeing first. So sometimes it's like probably making a great video, probably making a great video on the video clips, on those kind of thing, on the traditional music. And probably the things that we have to do is collaboration. The great things about the collaboration probably, the traditional musician can be more collaborate with those foreign great musicians, I would say, like a big name, the state or England or wherever, China, Japan. They really love to join with the traditional music. But then again, probably those musicians, how can we reach them? How can we reach to the village probably? Because we're probably living in a village. That's probably another question. Then I have a lot of friends in Hollywood who said, look, Gilang, what do we bring here to playing in Hollywood? There's a lot of stars who wants to play with all these great musicians. I said, yes, probably, we can do that. And then there's one thing we've been talking with Sachin, has to be like a festival, probably. Mr. Ramin has been doing so many festivals, going around. But the important, probably, everything is about sustainable. Sustain. That's one of the key. So the sustain probably, it can cover by the business probably. But the business people would love to make a festival all over the place by touching the traditional music, and can be like, if you're making like a festival, but the economy creative, like tukang baso can earn 10 times than he's selling on the street, right? So our stalls are all learning that. It's not about stage skill, it's about those who selling martabak, tukang baso, those kind of thing. Oh, okay, that's really, I wasn't concentrated with that at that time. But we have a lot of region that it has to be sustainable of a festival. That might be help on the economy of music traditional. And we have a lot of manufacturing traditional instrument. We've been talking with Mr. Chandra, because Chandra is also helping on the, maybe about the portal that we just open up how to sell instrument. But we've been talking also about, be careful when you sell the instrument. There's so many order. Is it ready or not? Yeah, that's also another things that I remember at that time we had a Congress. It's the first Congress for the music traditional, and I said, can we invite it from the minister from the Kahutanan? What is it? Forest? I said, what are you doing in the forest? No, we need wood. I said, because if there's no wood, there's no sound. There's much making the instrument by wood. So we have to make a sustainable of the forest, and the bamboo and the wood and everything. And probably there's contribute with a 12 probably minister probably for the making of this progress of economy on the music traditional. And then we had about a week ago in Indonesia, it had just released that I've been learning also with Chandra. Also, it's a, what do you call, maybe Chandra he can be more explained about Lembaga Management Collective. It's collective for the royalty for the music, traditional music. And then at that time also, there's a lot of people, hey, do they turn on the traditional music in the mall or in the restaurant or not? Not yet, probably. But considering of the law number 5 to 2017 that it has to be protected in Indonesia, so we're going to make the economy. So that's why probably the music is going to be survive. It's going to be just keep going till whenever. Because if there's no market, it probably our culture is gonna step by step is gonna be go out of nowhere of this traditional music. So today we are considering of the greatest thing about this digital area. Probably everywhere whenever time that we can see the traditional music. There is so many culture all over Indonesia. But the greatest thing now probably that the festival is already in a certain area, is already done. But there's also considering probably in a small village also has to be a festival and everywhere. So, like again, it's the most important is the great management on and everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gilang. And I think a warm round of applause for the project on preserving traditional music. I think what's important here is it's not traditional music in the way that we may imagine, right? This is in fusion, in collaboration with young people from many other countries. So it's about making traditional music more mainstream and more popular so that the youth can latch onto it and not see it as the music of their grandfathers. So I think that's the key here. So, Amin, we're going to come back to you. I want to get a few more projects here because I think then we will get a response from the common paragraph on how can the ministry help in connecting all the dots together. So I have a few more names here. I'm actually going to tell you so that you know you won't be surprised when I come to you. We have Ainsley, who's doing a Trust Foundation's concert with a huge orchestra and taking it overseas. So I'm going to hear a little bit about that project from Ainsley. Alistair has a lot of projects up his sleeve in preserving culture. So we'll have 5 minutes from you, Alistair, after this. We have Pak Gatot and Prakash here who are working on the Indo-French project. We'll hear a little bit from him. We have Mo Siddiq here, who's building a footprint for Indonesian comedy worldwide. And I think he's one of the pioneers in that area, and he has a lot of challenges that he would like to bring here so that we can find solutions. We have, like we heard from Orbit, we had Nalin talking about how they're doing capacity building. We also have USAID here. Philip is here. And I think we can hear a little bit from you about how you've been approaching, supporting programs in Indonesia. But we'll come to that at the end. I'd like to go on to Ainsley. Ainsley, a few words from you about what your project is and some of the challenges that you're facing that we could collectively come together and work for. Thank you. Over to you, Ainsley.
Okay, thanks, Sachin. A lot of what Gilang said I resonate with. I'm not a musician. I'm not a concert producer. I'm not an artist. About 2 years ago, I was approached by the Trinity Youth Symphony Orchestra of Indonesia, which is the only community youth orchestra in the country. And they approached me because they're having trouble finding venues, having trouble selling tickets, having trouble attracting people, young kids to come into symphonic music. So we started to change their identity a little bit, and what we focused on was collaboration with other cultures. The first thing I ever did was actually collaborate with an Indian bagpiper with Indonesian musicians, and we did Scottish music. We filmed a video in Uluwatu. We had over 1 million views within a month. And that was also hopefully to promote Indonesia in a little way. And then after that, they've taken their own initiatives. They've done collaborations with Japanese themes. They've done collaboration. We did a collaboration with a rock theme from the UK. We're now going to take them, 70 musicians to the UK next year. And we're going to take Indonesian theme music to the UK. And we're going to collaborate with some musicians in Scotland, traditional musicians in Scotland. And this will be the first ever Indonesian musical performance on one of the main stages at the Edinburgh Festival. They'll be playing 2 nights there. And the idea is to give young musicians exposure to different types of music, not just one-dimensional, to give them stuff that they're interested in. And what we've seen since we started this is the number of young people coming into the music schools that are attached to the orchestra, I think has tripled. The number of teachers coming into the music schools, or the availability for the teachers, I think has tripled as well. So there's an ecosystem developing around this. And from what I can see is that there are so many opportunities for cross-cultural collaboration, particularly with the younger people. And where people like myself come in is not to drive the musical content, not to drive the themes, but to help the likes of the Trust Orchestra become more sustainable. As I say, when we were starting off, it was difficult to sell tickets. The last concerts we did, we sold 4,000 tickets in 10 minutes. We're completely oversubscribed. They didn't have any sponsors before. Now I get at least 10 corporate sponsors for every concert. The tour to the UK is entirely privately funded. We've got no government support, whether it be from here or from the UK. And the attractiveness is just to open up themes like this for collaboration overseas. And my ambition when I take them to the UK is to do the reverse. We will promote Indonesian theme music in the UK. We will promote collaboration with some leading artists in the UK. And actually, as soon as you mention youth, it's quite easy to get a leading artist. So, I think Alistair will know Julie Fowlis. She's one of the most famous traditional Scottish singers of all time, basically. She's a national treasure. She's going to perform with them. Nicola Benedetti, one of the world's leading violinists, booked out 5 years in advance. She will do something with them. So it's becoming more apparent that the top musicians are willing to collaborate if you can come up with the right theme. And of course, the idea is to expose the international audience to these young Indonesian musicians, to expose collaboration and hopefully bring some of these international artists back to Indonesia and further collaborate with Indonesian musicians. I think the traditional music theme and the fusion has got lots and lots of legs. I was talking to Gilang earlier, and I said that actually one of the biggest musical genres in my country is traditional Celtic music. 6% of the population speaks the language on a day-to-day basis, but it's massive throughout the country. Bands play in front of tens of thousands. Festivals are huge. So it is possible to take traditional music and turn it around a little bit, infuse it, and bring it to much wider mass appeal. And that's something I think that we should definitely support here in Indonesia. There's so much talent. After the Komodo project, I showed some of the videos to my work colleagues. They hadn't been exposed to any of this music before. They hadn't been exposed to some of these performers. So I think it's just a case of providing opportunities, exposing it to a wider audience, and it will take on a life of its own, providing us people around this table can find opportunities for these musicians to perform and provide opportunities for musicians like that to collaborate. And I want to start at the younger end. The youngest performer I have in the orchestra is 9. The eldest is 26. They're all talented, but to give them life-changing experiences, to go and perform abroad, collaborate with other artists, word of mouth will spread. There'll be more and more Indonesians encouraged to go into that sector. And for business people like myself, if we can help the likes of that orchestra structure itself in a better way, whether it be for governance, we're working with kids, we have strict governance rules and what they can and cannot do, in terms of preparing business cases, for pitching for sponsorship, coming up with themes that are sustainable. That's where the business community can come in. And finally, to Umar's point, when I took the Command Paragraph delegation to Scotland, it was most apparent that the performing arts colleges have a very, very strong business theme to them. So the people that go and study there, they don't just study their artistic genre, they study how to make their artistic genre more sustainable, how to do pitches to business, how to produce, the wider context. And I hope, actually, Umar, there could be more collaboration with colleges like that in the likes of the UK. They can add a lot of value here in Indonesia if we can get it going. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you. Thank you, Ainsley. That's an interesting project that we'll connect you to as we go by over the because we are also collaborating with Ainsley. We'll be very happy to share more information about that project around January or in February. I'd like to move on to Mo Siddiq. I don't know how many of you don't know Mo Siddiq. Mo Siddiq is a stand-up, I think Indonesia's original international stand-up comedian. You don't need to stand up more. Let's hear a little bit about some of the efforts Mo is making. It's not just about being a performer on stage, but Mo is actually working with a group of comedians across Indonesia, not only in the English language space, but he's also helping Indonesian comedians. But I think Mo has spent a month in Edinburgh, UK, more than once. He has been, I would say, the representative of Indonesia's stand-up comedy talent. We'd like to hear a little bit about what are you trying to do more as you go forward over the next few years, and how do you see the people in the room here collaborating with you, and maybe especially get some kind of help from the Kemenparekraf, the ministry as well, in supporting the initiatives that are being done by you and your group. Over to you, Mo.
Thank you very much. That's my picture like 10 years ago, so. So what I want to talk about in this forum is my experience. Last August, some of Indonesian speaking English comedian, it's very few. We sent to Edinburgh to experience the festival by Kairos, by Indo Fringe, and also Kemenparekraf. Thank you for that. And but what I wanna tell you about is the experience, how in 24 days we perform 54 shows. So it's almost 2 or 3 every day. That's something that we don't have in Indonesia. Right now, stand-up comedy in Indonesia is really big. It's really, really big. We start in 2010. Unlike any other stage performances, we educate our audience to pay. Whenever there's a show, you have to pay. We educate them from 15,000, and right now almost every stand-up comedy shows in Indonesia in Bahasa Indonesia is, you have to buy tickets. The biggest one is by Panji Pragiwaksono last year. It's 5,000 people, 5,000 to 7,000 people. The average ticket is 1 million. It's sold out. So there's a lot of success story for Indonesian stand-up comedian. 100 of them. It's mostly Cinderella story. They come from a poor family, come from parts of Indonesian. One of them is like teachers. We have Mas Cemen. Mas Cemen is one of the best right now. He's a English teacher that cannot speak English. Yeah, so that's the fact. That's the fact. That's why it's better be a stand-up comedian than a teacher in Cikarang. But there's a success story, but not the one for the English one. In English scene, we are nobody. We are nobody in the world. We are nobody in our region in Southeast Asia. We are like I don't know why. We are even, some comedians from Brunei is doing better than us. Doing better as in they can sell tickets around the region. They get invited to big festival. They actually have their own special on Netflix. That's like, right now it's the biggest, the biggest achievement you can get. In Indonesia, the biggest achievement for a comedian get is thrown to jail because of drugs. And that's also the fact. But in the world right now, Malaysia, they already have 3 people have special in Netflix. Singapore have 2. Indonesian have none. Yeah. The problem is probably Mr. Gita is right, because our English is not that good. But I think my English is also not good. But when they push us going to Edinburgh to do 54 shows in English in the front of English audience, you don't have any choice. You need to learn your English. You need to be funny in English. That's really hard. And in the front of, we have two shows, one in 3 o'clock in the afternoon and one in 11:20 p.m. Always full, but full with drunk people. So you have to speak in English. You have to be funny in the front of drunk people. That's skillful. 54 shows made us really good. When we come back here, most of us can do 1 hour of stand-up comedy easily in English. In Indonesian term, is next level. We level up really fast in only 24 days. I think that we should do that. What we should do, we should make because in Indonesia there's no culture of that. The last time we saw everyday shows in Indonesia is back in Solo by Sri Mulat, 50 years ago. I don't know, 40 years ago. They do shows every night. In Jakarta right now they have JKT48. Yes. Yeah, they do shows every 6 days a week. But in Indonesia, we don't have that. We don't have like people in West End. They do shows. They do West End shows, theatrical shows, for every day. So the actress, the actor, the artist, they spend stage hours every night, every day, like we did in Edinburgh. That's why they're so good. That's why they have international, capability. And then that's why Malaysia have a lot of international actors and actors and also artists in the world. They have Michelle Yeoh, they have Ronnie Cheng, they have Nigel Ng, they have Jason Leong. That's international name. They can sell. Ronnie Cheng, he lives in America right now. He have American shows at night. He's Malaysian. Indonesian Malaysian is like Upin Ipin. Like we're not supposed to get beaten by Malaysia. Our food is better. That's why we lack of practices. We lack of stage hours because we don't have that in Indonesia. Maybe the culture. And probably because the place, the stage. We, in Indonesia, Indonesia lack of theater, lack of event space. We have great one in Jakarta, but not in any other places. But also in Jakarta, government theater is also curated by a whole bunch of Gen X and not this generation, baby boomers. All the curators are baby boomers. They know nothing about today's art. Yeah, I got cut by the curators like 3 times because that's our government place in Indonesia is like Tim. If you rent the 400 the theater kecil is very cheap. It's only like 4 million. If you rent the GKJ, 400 people, it's very cheap. It's 7 million. If you rent the bigger place, Teater Besar, it's 28 million for 1,200 people. That's our government. That's really, really good. Because if you compare to the private one, if we want to do 400 in SCBD, in Suwana Hall, you have to rent 39 million. That's really hard for us because we have to perform, we have to promote, we have to sell tickets, we have to do everything. We have to do everything. We are the producer, we are everything. And to book 1,200 venues, it costs us 300 million in Ciputra Hall. That's the difference. And that's in Jakarta. In Bali, they have a very beautiful place. They even give you very free in Bali. But again, it's curated by baby boomers. Again. I don't know about Jogja, in Bandung, I don't think they have one. They have, the government have one, but it's, I think when you talk too loud, the building will collapse. It's just, the culture is not, I don't know why we rich in culture, but we lack of spaces. I think that's from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mo. Actually, you made a very good point on, it's actually the market. Yeah, big round of applause. You highlighted some of the key issues that even Pa Umar had flagged, and he'll comment on it a little later. Seema, you want to add something? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Mo. I'm Seema, a foreign legal consultant in Indonesia. Mo, you spoke of language, you spoke of space, and other issues concerning the numbers. For the comedians who perform, is law a hindrance? Do they fear law? Does that come in the way of freedom of expression and censorship and everything? Because once you put your content on YouTube, you will have more traction. Would that come in the way? And this is, a question I have.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mo.
The Indonesian culture is quite good, actually. We are quite free in Indonesia. We are quite free. By the government, it's free, but by the netizen, it's not. So what we do is, every time we have shows, we make it really close. Nobody can record it, nobody can do anything. We will publish it in our, after we censor it a little bit. Because stand-up comedy is raw. It's a raw kind of art. Because it's an art of criticism. So nobody can, on the stage, in the front of audience, usually they can take it, but not in YouTube. That's why some of the trouble that we have is from the shows that leak. Yeah, that leak to the public by YouTube. But the government is doing great job not to, we never have trouble. And right now, even in TV, the government ask us to criticize. The DPR, MPR have a session with comedian. They want us to roast them, and even the president, the candidate president, they want to be roasted by the comedian. So it's a very healthy, very healthy. The thing that really bother us is the tax. Yeah, because tax is really, really high. I think the government of Makassar and Surabaya just give the knife to the artists, just make them stab themselves. Because the tax for the ticket is 15% for local. In Surabaya and Makassar. Jakarta in 5% for local, for foreigner like Coldplay is 15%. But in Surabaya and Makassar, 15%. Yeah, so just give them, don't perform your art, just kill yourself. And then for movies, for instance, we get tax when we make the movie. We got tax when we sell the movie. We got tax when we receive the money from the movie. So we got tax 3 times. Yeah, that's bother us. Censorship is okay. Yeah.
It's a good point. So, if you pay more tax, means you're making more money. Does not necessarily be true. Okay. Moving on, I'd like to, actually, what he did not say was that the baby boomers curating is actually in the way because they don't allow many shows or they don't open out their facilities as much as they should do so because they don't seem to understand. So that is why the non-availability of some of the cheaper venues, the venues are there, but actually they are not being given out as easily as one would expect. So a lot of venues in Indonesia actually go underutilized. This is a fact even in Bali. Ainsley, you want to add to that?
I'm in the real estate business.
A microphone, please, yeah.
I'm in the real estate business, and there are so many venues here and operators of venues that don't really understand what they have. And they could make them much more available to the performing arts sector. Generally, I'm guilty of that. I have a venue. I never thought I could do musical performances, and I started doing it. So it's getting that exposure about what type of performers are available, getting it out there. I would love the equivalent of the ballet app for the performing arts in Jakarta, so I can know what's happening from day to day. But there are lots and lots of venues, and there are lots of operators who would likely give their venue for nothing, because if they can bring a crowd in, that crowd would then be maybe supporting the F&B in a different part of the venue, or in my case, going to have a look at show units or real estate. So we can be a bit more, I think we can be a bit more creative about opening up an awful lot more venues for performers here, because there's so many that are completely underutilized. This is a great venue, but it wasn't built as a performing arts venue probably, right? So I think just engaging the wider community and explaining to them what could be available. These venues can be curated. Now, someone like myself, I'm pretty open to what I put on. We have no hard and fast rules, as long as it complements what we're trying to do in the general business sense. But there are lots and lots of venues, including in Bandung.
Fantastic. So we're going to hear from Alistair and Poonam. I'd like you to talk a little bit about, you do the Indian Bazaar, which is also a creative economy activity. So we'll hear from you as well. Alistair, over to you. And then Prakash, you also, after that, we'll hear from Prakash on Indo-Fringe. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Alistair Spears. I've possibly been here longer than anybody else. This is my 44th year in Indonesia. So I've seen a lot of changes, including the Indonesians. If you don't mind, I'm going to start back with what Pak Gita was talking about, and then try and wrap this all the way through to where we're talking about now. Because it all has to fit together. The politics, the economics, and society have to fit together. If they don't, we won't have a proper ecosystem. He was talking about the internet, sustainability, and AI. And he was looking at the solutions to that through education. Now, education immediately comes into play in everything we're doing, everything. And the education system, as we saw, only 2.8% of GDP spent on education. We've known that for how many years? But why can't we put it right? And the way in which people are being educated, why isn't that being put right? Because we don't have cultural education. So therefore, there's no appreciation of culture. Someone was talking about, why don't people go to Toraja? Because they don't know about Toraja. No one talks about the indigenous cultures. And in fact, in some cases, they talk negatively about the indigenous cultures of Indonesia, rather than positively through that great expression, unity and diversity. It's, well, actually, well, we don't really like the Manadonese or the Papuans. We don't really like them. We've got to be honest with this. We're not culturally educated, so there's a long way to go on that point of view. Secondly is this organization. How do we organize Indonesian tourism? Well, we organize it through the ministry, but if you ask the minister himself, can he tell the kabupatens what to do? He says no. So we've got 521 kabupatens and kota madhyas, which are virtually independent, and they have virtually no real training in tourism and culture. They've got a Dinas Pariwisata, but they don't have any training in it, and they don't have that top-level understanding. Even the Bupati of Badung, the single largest kabupaten, the Bupati doesn't care about tourism. He loves the tax, but he doesn't care about it enough to curate it and look after it. He's the one who allowed the nightclubs to have the loudest possible noise. So we've got some very negative factors in tourism as well. Let's be very clear before we go any further. We're running out of water everywhere. I'll just switch straight into the problems and the challenges, because we can't go to digitalization of destinations which aren't ready. They're not ready. We have no water anywhere, Java and Bali. We're pretending to have water, but we don't have it. We don't have enough energy, and we certainly don't have enough renewable energy, which means that we cannot be certified as DSDC destinations, which Singapore can. Therefore, we're going to lose the international battle through utilities, which is a national government challenge. And we haven't taken that challenge on at all. We've got no water, we've got no waste management at all. We've just seen the great tragedy of the waste in the TPA in Bali going on fire. Disgraceful. We've known for years we have a challenge. How do you have the most successful island in tourism in the world with burning rubbish dumps that shouldn't be there? And to solve the problem, they then bulldozed paddy fields and put the waste there. Is that organization which is going to, do we want to digitize those messages and send them to the world? We're not ready. When you get off your plane in Bali, you run into 1,000 motorbikes before you've done 100 meters. And people are going, I've come to the center of culture in the world. Where is it? There are 140 giant billboards before you reach the first hotel. Is that the visual identity we want to have our destinations? This is all driven by government departments who don't understand the industry they're in. We cannot digitize, we can't promote around the world until we put the basic elements right. And we haven't got those right. Waste, water, and energy are not right. That means that we can't be certified as destinations which are sustainable. That loses our marketing edge against everywhere in the world. There are no subsidies. I'm working with 4 or 5 hotel groups in sustainability. There's no help from any government department. In Thailand, they subsidize solar. They subsidize retrofitting of buildings. Singapore, you want to put a green wall in, it's paid for. They have the technology and the subsidies. We have nothing to help tourism get into the stage of sustainability apart from the private sector itself. But what do we have? We have the greatest cultural diversity of any destination in Asia. And what are we doing about it? We're covering it up. We're not doing it properly. We're building over it. We are disguising it with, okay, we need bands and we need the nightclubs and so on and so forth, but we also need to preserve the things which are timeless. And I've been working in the tourism industry through publishing for the last 35 years, and we have a huge amount of content, and that content is hidden behind the modern, so-called more attractive part of tourism. I disagree. The most attractive thing about tourism is the uniqueness of the product, not the homogeneity. There are beach clubs and nightclubs everywhere in the world, but there's nothing like this anywhere in the world. And every Kabupaten has this. Do you think there's one publication done by any of them of this quality? 500 of them? Not one. And that's disgraceful. And that means that we're not leading the way. We're not doing it correctly. We haven't solved our utilities problem. We haven't solved our traffic problem. We haven't solved our air pollution problem. We haven't solved our planning and zoning problem. Yet we want to go digital and bring more people in. I think we've got a lot more homework to do before we get to that stage. I'm sorry to be negative, but you know, when you're an alcoholic, you have to say, I'm an alcoholic and get cured. We are really not in the right place to go forward with confidence until we admit our faults first. Thanks.
Thank you. This is an important message, actually, what what Alistair is discussing here. To get our affairs in order so that the venues are ready for promotion, ready for receiving visitors, because otherwise they will not have the experience you want them to have. So I think that's a lot of work that is not just the government, but also the private sector. For example, hotels, do we have the right kind of hotels? Do we have the right kind of venue experiences? Do we have tour guides in the right places? A lot of work needs to be done, no doubt about it. I think what the issue of what digitalization can do is not just about promoting and bringing people there, but digital can be a way to educate. Maybe the digital platforms are the ones that will help scale up education at this high level, because to do so without digital has already been proven to be almost impossible. So maybe that's the real opportunity. Nalin here runs Orbit Future Academy. It's one of the companies that is committed towards education for the creative economy sector as well, and that's some homework for Orbit to see how we can play a role in improving the education for building up the ecosystem and the services that are there. Quickly, because we are We have another half an hour to go for this session, and Pa Umar has to leave at 12. So I'd like to quickly move on to Prakash and Pa Gatot, one of you. Just a quick overview on Indo-Fringe. What are you doing and what do you plan to do?
Thank you, Sachin. Hello, everyone. My name is Prakash. I'm from 360 Sports Management. Because I'm from sports, I would like to bring to the notice in today's discussion, since morning we're talking about a lot of things related with tourism, etc. Sports tourism is a huge sector where tourists will come into a thing. At the moment, we have the Under-17 World Cup going on in Indonesia. How many of you know about it here? World Cup for soccer. Yeah, it's going on, and it's happening in major cities. This is where the information, the digital technology, things like that is very important to bring it out to the public, what's happening around the world. Right? Now, let me come back to the Indo-Fringe part of it, for which I'm here. We tied hands with Kairos to produce the Indo-Fringe Festival. The Indo-Fringe Festival is a festival of festival. We would like to call ourselves as aggregators of festivals. We were in Edinburgh for the Edinburgh Fringe Festival a couple of months back in August, and few of the people around this table were also present with us, along with a delegation from the Ministry of Tourism. We met the government officials over there. We met people from the organizers of Edinburgh Fringe Festival. We learned a lot, and we came back and we put together a showcase which was over 10 days. And most of the people around the table were all partners for the Indo-Fringe Festival. Like, for example, we had Cameron from Megatix being the ticketing partner. We had Ainsley, who is providing us venue at his Savya Vyasa event. We had Nalin from Orbit Future Academy, who are providing education part of the certification for festival management for the schools, etc. I would like to inform you that over the 10 days of the showcase of the Indo-Fringe Festival, Sachin, you may correct me if I'm wrong with the numbers, we had close to around 1,060 odd talent that took part in the...
I think there's a slide that gives you the numbers. Can you move to the next slide, please? One more. The next one. Yes.
There you go. So we had planned for 1,000, we got 1,362 talents. In fact, the numbers are more because each group had, few hundred people also taking part. For example, we were working with a community at the Kota Tua. There was a community called MKB, which is the Kota Tua Street Performers Association. They had close to around 200, 300 people taking part in different kinds of art forms. And we had about 7,000, 8,000 people watching these performances. So we also had a few, not few, we planned for 90, but we got 382 schools taking part in the Indo-Fringe at Scola. And next year, we plan to take this to campuses, university campuses, and it's going to be spread over at least, our plan is to go to at least 20 cities. And eventually by 2025, we want to reach out to 50 cities. We're going to replicate the same thing around in different cities. This is not only about performers coming on stage, performing, and the audience watching and enjoying it. It's also about educative part of the festival, where we are trying to create people to, or create sustainable elements like, for example, how do you engage sponsors? How do you engage corporates to support your festivals? How do you engage philanthropists? How do how do you set up stages, how do you bring all these partners together. So we are trying to educate these people how to run festivals. So that's why we try to call ourselves the Festival of Festivals. I have Pa Gatot with me, who is a very experienced person in festivals. He is synonymous with one of the largest jazz festivals, the Java Jazz Festival. Pa Gatot, I would like you have been with us for the last 10 days, visiting venues, visiting our events. I would like you to share your views on how the showcase went.
Thank you, Prakash. Selamat siang. We have 10 schools involving more than 30 schools in one school. So about 382 schools involved in the Indo-Fringe event. Mostly, these schools are very good in holding their event. There's a bazaar, there is stage, there is a performance, and involving several what's the name, arts like painting and the gallery. That's one thing that we thought about this school, how to leverage their scaling economy of arts of the school in arts, like their talent in painting, their product, their painting art, something like that. So we're trying hard to think how to leverage their scaling, economic of scale of this student of the school, which have a talent, a good talents in arts. So that's Indo-Fringe be there as a form to gather the community of the student community, something like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pa. So, yeah, Pa Umar, you have to leave. Okay, thank you so much. Yes. So, if you can have the slides back on, I think there are 2 slides. I'll just quickly wheel you through. Yeah. So, this is the plan that Indo-Fringe will build a network of 10,000 schools and 500 universities in the next 5 years. Next slide, please. This was an event held in this very room. If you can notice, if you recognize the room, you won't believe it that actually this room is also good for music and jazz performances. So Prakash is actually working on building a network of 200 communities. This will be taking place over 2024. Do we have another slide after this? Yes. So this is another project which Prakash worked on, building a partnership with 35 embassies. This was with the Spanish embassy, and they had a Latin Grammy Award nominee come and perform in Indonesia. I think next year there will be events with 35 embassies, one with each during the whole year. So just to give you an example of how a project is being put together in collaboration, as Prakash mentioned here, a lot of people are partners who are there in the room here itself. I'm going to go very quickly to Poonam. Can you talk a little bit about your experience in running the bazaars, because that's also a collaboration with a lot of various partners. Would you like to talk a little bit about that, Poonam?
Thank you, Sachin. I'm Poonam Sagar. I run a online community portal for Indians in Indonesia called indoindians.com. And under this Indo-Indians, we connect not only Indians in Indonesia, but also everybody in Indonesia which has an interest in India. So as a result of that, we also started doing bazaars. So we started a Spring Bazaar and a Diwali Bazaar, and some 2-3 years ago. During the pandemic, it went online, and we did a number of online bazaars, if that is something that you can believe, where we had vendors come and showcase their products via Zoom, and people could actually see their products and order. This year, we had a very successful bazaar, which we collaborated with the Indian Mission to ASEAN, and we had around 150 vendors of not only local vendors, but also people from India and from the ASEAN countries. So one thing that I found very interesting was that this year we created the entire digital platform for people, for the vendors to choose which table they wanted within the bazaar premises. So they could pick and choose their table like an airline booking system. The visitors could also buy their tickets online. There was a lot of digital effort put into creating the event. And that really optimized the experience for the vendors as well as for the visitors. And that was something of really, but what I found even more interesting was that, as it was mentioned earlier in the session, very few of the vendors actually have tried selling their stuff on Tokopedia or on any other platform like Shopee. So that is still that, those really small micro enterprises which are still working from home or working in very micro organizations, that they still do not look at going to a larger e-commerce platform. And while I still have the mic, I wanted to also point out a comment that I had while Pa Gita was speaking about, number of PhD students from Indonesia who are going overseas. So he said there were 182. Now, my question would be, how many of them have come back? Going is one thing. And I think, Pa Timothy, you are one of the good examples who studied overseas, done a PhD, and come back to support the Indonesian economy. In India, we have this term called the brain drain. So we have all the brightest minds going overseas, especially to the US, and supporting the economy grow through its intellectual prowess. Where we have 182 people from Indonesia go last year, how many came back? And how many are helping grow the digitization efforts here in Indonesia? I think it all points out to how are we building our educational centers of excellence here in Indonesia to enable the brightest minds to add to the Indonesian economy.
Okay, thank you, Poonam. Some very good points. Nalin, would you like to respond?
Just one sentence to lighten the mood. Brain drain not just to US, to Indonesia as well. Look at us.
Okay. So we are now, does anybody else want to add to this? Because we're going to go to common paragraph. We have Dr. Mohammed Amin is here. And we wanted to hear some thoughts from him about all that what he's heard today. And also some of the initiatives that common paragraph itself is doing. And Pa Amin is in charge of many new initiatives. So over to you, Pa Amin.
Yeah, first of all, I want to respond, Mr. Alistair Spears. I really like what have already you said, and then I agree about the authenticity versus homogeneity. I attend like 4 or 5 festivals, our festivals, supported by the ministry, namely Charisma Event Nusantara, if you want to know that one. It's kind of like a calendar event. Where I go, I saw proscenium state. Where is the circular state? Where is how they have meaning of round dance in the eastern part of Indonesia? I agree with that. So I think it should be there is like a curator or creative director who understand anthropologically with the situation in the region. Then it should be come up, and then it should be demonstrated in the festival. And then the second one, I want to ask Pa Umar Hadi about the freedom of expression. What do you mean of freedom of expression? Because depend upon the ideology of the ideology. If you know, art, there's so many ideologies in art. Art for economy, creative, art for community development, art for social propaganda. So many ideology for that. So what do we mean by freedom of expression? Once I was invited to talk about freedom of expression. I want to go there, but in one condition. I want to talk about freedom of expression with my framework. What is my framework? Freedom of expression with responsibility, and to give impact, to benefit impact. That's my point of view. So freedom should be followed together with responsibility. Otherwise, everybody could express everything in the name of freedom. And then and the second one, in creative economy, we should, the freedom, the expression should give benefit impact. So economic impact is one of the indicator. So freedom of expression also give also freedom of interpretation. Okay, so Pak Sandi talks about horror, The horror. What do you think about Indonesian horror movie? Is it positive or negative? Freedom of expression should be followed by freedom of interpretation. Many government officials and scholars give negative opinion about horror movie phenomena in Indonesia. I don't. That is our strength. What we need to do is to insert moral message in the film, and trying to find a new genre constructed in Indonesia. Horror movie combined with the comedy, horror movie combined with the drama, and then comedy, horror movie, and then combined with the action. Have you seen the Big Four? Indonesian movie in Netflix? That's a very good example of how the experimentation of how comedy and then action to go together. So we will see how Indonesian construct the movie. The horror movie will be the strength of Indonesian character. I think that's all.
Luar biasa. Thank you, Pak. Ibu Dini, would you like to add something? Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm the representative from the Deputy of Strategic Policy. So I would like to explore about the one thing that maybe probably the future tourism trend in the future. So based on Dr. Timothy, if I'm not wrong, we are very in one point of view. So in 2023, experiential activities such as wellness tourism and also nature, and then also it increased by over 10% than 2019. So we have the big opportunity. Travelers increasingly seeking a unique experience, such as spending experience in the food and beverage, and also we can see about the business leisure. So I think this is a good opportunity to us to combine between wellness tourism and also digitalization. And one thing for sure, Indonesia is on 32nd position in TTDI. Have you ever heard before? Travel and Tourism Development Index. And then one of the important things from TTDI is talking about the ICT readiness. So I think this is the big important for us to collaborate together in Indonesia, how to strengthen the ecosystem of digitalization. And then the ICT readiness for Indonesia is become one of the great value to push the position Indonesia in TTDI position. I think that's enough. Mr. Sachin, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. So as you can see, we've come to the end of the session here. A big round of applause for Kemen Parekraf. When I went to Pa Sandy some months ago and said that we would like to create a session on the creative economy and tourism, and keep this as a forum for all people who are stakeholders, he was very encouraging, and he told me that why don't we start with a session first. So this is the first time we've actually had a session, the Economic Forum. I'm sure the ministry has had many, but the Indonesian Economic Forum has brought stakeholders, and we do conduct this in the English language for a reason, because we want this session to be able to be understood by all our partners across all the various countries, and also to try and improve the English competency of Indonesian youth. So we partner with universities, we partner with schools, so that they can also watch the modules that are being broadcast by Indonesia Economic Forum. So that's the reason why it's in English, and that's the reason why I think we have enough material that we can convert a one session into a one full day program, or maybe even a 2-day program, and maybe even host it at the Kementerian, at the ministry, and we can do this once a year. We can collaborate and bring all your project partners, everybody together, and have a discussion. Yes?
We have the key message from the Ministry of Tourism and Economy, inclusivity and then also sustainability.
Absolutely. So inclusivity and sustainability will be the hallmark of our events. But we really look forward to bringing this discussion at Kemen Parekraf itself. And you have a beautiful venue there, Pa, in Sapta Pasona, Gedung Sapta Pasona. If we could design a full-day program, Pa Mantri can also be there. But that would be a great way for us to engage with all the different stakeholders who are involved in building the tourism and the creative economy sector. So I don't know if anybody else here would like to have a last word. We do have 2 minutes. Otherwise, we will break for lunch, and there is an afternoon session. We have at 12:30, our next session is going to be on this, but I did promise that I will ask Philip to say a few words from USAID. So before I close, so formally, Philip, I'd like to say a few words because, you know, Philip is from USAID, and USAID has been involved in a lot of programs, not only in education and capacity building, but across cultural programs with the US government. There is At America in Jakarta, and so many other programs of talent that goes across the whole country. So we are seeing that there is a very healthy exchange between the two countries already. So Phil, would you like to say a few comments, something that you've heard today? Because this is probably a slightly different sector than you're used to. So over to you, Phil.
Okay, thank you so much. I will make this really quick because I know lunch is coming. So if you're not familiar with USAID, we're the United States Agency for International Development. We are the foreign assistance arm of the US government. Here in Indonesia, we basically focus on 4 major areas. One is in health. The other one is in environment. The third one is in democracy, resilience, and governance. And the fourth one, where my colleague Toto and I work in, is the economic growth and education. Within the economic growth and education office, we focus on economic growth. Things like digitalization is one of the areas, but we also look at finance. We also look at education, also workforce development. So we cover a broad area of things, and typically the way we support Indonesia is through what we call technical assistance. So this is providing technical support, some co-financing at times. And what we like to do, particularly in my office, is to actually work a lot with the private sector. USAID in general has worked in the creative and tourism sector. We've done this in a number of countries. In fact, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Fast and Furious 9. When I was in my last post, which is in Georgia, we actually had Georgians intern with the film company when they were filming this. So we've had some experience in the creative industry as well as tourism and others. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Phil. Big round of applause for Phil, because Jeff Cohen, who will be here, I think, in the afternoon session, also told us that he would connect us to the US Embassy's cultural affairs team, and to find more synergy of working with Indo-Fringe and some of the other activities we have here.